In this lesson, I'm talking about the Live Preview highlight option. I ignored this when I talked about workspace setup because I wanted to give it a little more attention. Also, I wanted to wait until we had some actual HTML and CSS to look at. Before we start, I want to add some more content to the pc.html. I'm just going to copy from the gist I'm linking to in the lesson notes. I'll copy it to the bottom of the page. These are the shortcuts related to Quick Edit, which I talked about in the previous 3 lessons. The Live Preview highlight option is found under the View menu. It does have a keyboard shortcut that I often forget, Ctrl+Shift+C. It's actually already listed under the Workspace section already. What it does is highlight whatever element you're on when you're editing your code. You can see if I start at the top of the page and start to cursor down, when I hit the HTML tag, the entire page is highlighted for a second and then fades out. A thin blue outline remains. When I get to the body, we can see the border is smaller. That's because we gave the body a width of 95% and also because the H1 has a large margin on the top and bottom. I actually want to change the top and bottom margin on that H1, so I'll use Quick Edit to fix it right now. We can see if I go to the normalize rule that this is where it's set, but I'll update the margin in our custom code in main.css. When I arrow down to the H2, it's making me notice how these headlines are jutting out to the left and are not lined up under the main header and logo. That bugs me, but I'm not going to fix it just yet. I'll be adding icons to these headers and I'll wait to fix it then. Notice that when I arrow down to the shortcuts div that there's a gap between the header and div. That's because of margins. So this little border we're seeing is showing us the box of the element that includes the padding but not the margin. If I turn on developer tools by inspecting the header, the live preview stops. Also notice the different elements on the page all have IDs that are not from our code. They were injected by brackets itself. I can refresh the entire page to get rid of that so we can just see our code. When I go to the workspace header, you can see the orange is the margin, which is not indicated by that live preview highlight. When I go to the shortcuts div, we see the green, which is the padding. I'll start up live preview again, and we can see that the blue line includes the content area plus the padding. So this live preview highlight is not a true replacement for using development tools in your browser. But it is nice because you can keep the live preview going and don't always need to turn on the tools when you have this. We can continue down the page and see each element highlighted as we go. This is useful because it helps your eye go to the place on the screen that you're working on. It's also useful just to see the simple box. It helps you figure out what's going on in your layout. Now, if we go to the CSS file, this preview still works. As I go through the CSS in the author's style section, it's highlighting things as before. However, when I get to H2, it's highlighting all of the headers, not just the one I was on. And when I get to shortcuts and notes, it shows the boxes around all of those divs, so we can easily see how they fit together. If I go up to the asterisk selector, it'll actually draw a box around everything. That can be overwhelming some of the time, but if you're trying to deal with a layout issue, this view could help you figure out what's going on. While we're in here, I'd like to change the styles on the list items in the shortcuts section so it's easier to read. I'm going to get rid of the bullets and increase the line height so it's easier to read. I also want to align the bold shortcuts to the right with a standard width so it reads more like a table. If I go back to the HTML, you can see we have a strong tag around the actual shortcut. That's to make it bold, but we can use that as a hook for styling the layout. I'm going to put my cursor inside of the shortcut class so I can find that rule. Even though I don't want to put my styles in this rule, I want them near this spot in the CSS file, so this will let me put the code where I want. I really want to target the strong tags inside of shortcuts. See how they're all highlighted before I do any styling. The strong tag is an inline element, so it doesn't have any height or width. But if I add display inline block, you can see the height of the element is taking up the full line height now, and I can give this a width of 135 pixels. If I comment out the display statement, the width property does nothing now. So I'll put that back in. Now I want to align the text to the right and then give it a little bit of padding before the description text starts. One thing I'm noticing when we look at these boxes is how far they are indented to the right. That's because lists are given padding left from browsers. You want this often when you're showing the bullets, but I don't want it here. I'll set the padding left on the shortcuts UL to 0. Now I want to clean up the notes div. I'm giving this a padding left of 25 pixels because I'm leaving the bullets, but I want to start closer to the left side. And I'm adding a little margin below each list item so it's easier to read. One other thing that's bugging me is the height of this gray box around the notes. That was caused from the padding I added earlier. I really just need the padding on the left and the right. Finally, this first header too should say keyboard shortcuts, not just shortcuts. Sometimes it's nice to see this little blue box when you're styling things in your layout. However, it's also annoying at times, so I do find myself turning it on and off depending on exactly what I'm doing. Because your live preview breaks when you turn on developer tools, it's sometimes a good thing to try first. Sometimes those borders will help you see what's going on with the layout and helps you avoid opening developer tools.